All right, so let's get started for today. Let me know once you are able to see my screen.
Yes, Bhupendra. So, Bhupendra,
Mhm.
I have a question for you before we started.
Yeah.
So we are going through all these topics and all of it, and
Mhm.
I see there are same things we are using between the topics, right? Like a project charter has been an input for so many things, and it's been output for other things. So do we have any mnemonics or something like that so that it's easy to remember?
As I said earlier, you don't need to remember this. You don't need to remember. You need to understand just the flow. Only thing that you need to, wherever I want you to mug, I will tell you that this is something that you have to mug. This is something that you have to remember. Otherwise, just remember the
Okay.
concept. Just remember what is the concept behind it.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
because I see so many is the inputs for so many outputs and all
Yeah,
of
that's
that.
what I'm saying.
So,
Inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, you don't need to remember. This is only for you to build your understanding. How do you build the document? Now, a lot of times these inputs are just
mhm.
a indicator. It doesn't mean that these are the only inputs that you would be using. You might use less, you might use more. It depends upon your experience. Eventually, the output is whatever we are planning. Output is whatever we are doing in the execution phase or whatever
Mhm.
we are controlling and monitoring in the controlling and the monitoring phase, which is risk and the quality. So output would remain same, but the
Mhm.
inputs, tool and technique which changes. That's why I'm saying you don't need to remember it. Just understand how it is built. Yeah.
Okay. No, because my only concern was like, are the inputs and outputs, are they not going to be part of the PMP questionnaire? That was my only
No. From the exam,
concern.
it would have been very easy if in the exam it comes that what is the input for this process, what is the output for this process, or what is the tool and technique for this process. It would have been very easy. It's all practical questions which come.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Bhupendra.
Yeah. You're welcome. All right, so let's get started. We're going to get started with the time management. We have spoken a little bit about time management yesterday. So we spoke about time management as one of the critical element from the iron triple constraints or iron triangle that we have, project triple constraints. This is one of the another parameter that needs to be controlled to make the project successful, right? How do we do it? We first plan. Any knowledge area would start with planning. Why do we need to plan? Because we need to ensure that in the planning phase, we prepare what are we going to do, how are we going to do. We need all the stakeholders aligned about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. There are tons and tons of things which in the world which we can do. We cannot do everything, right? What is it that makes sense for my project is what I'm going to document in the plan document. If there is any dispute, if there is any enhancements which the stakeholders want, they will suggest it before the plan document gets approved. Once it is approved from our stakeholders, any change that they want to the plan document, any change that they want into the execution stage, they need to go through the change management process. They need to ensure that the change request is submitted. I will review the impact of it. I will submit it to CCB and CCB will take a decision, right? So this is how the flow is there for the project management. Project plan is it's going to safeguard my interest, and the project interest as well. Project stakeholders' interest as well. Project stakeholders understand what is happening, how it is happening. I have built consensus with all the stakeholders to ensure that they don't blame me later on if anything goes wrong. From the project perspective, everybody's inputs is taken care of before the project is executed, right? So all the three parameters are taken care of in the plan document. So plan document contains what are you going to do, how are you going to do, what are the threshold limits, what is the unit of measure, um, how the change control management would happen for this particular knowledge area. All of those things will be mentioned in the plan document. After it is planned, I'm going to define the activities. I'm going to define what are the activities which I have to do. Then I'm going to sequence those activities, right? So I will go ahead and sequence the activities. I will ensure that the activities which I've defined earlier, let me take an example here. So let's say I have the work which I have to do is further divided into work packages, right? So this is the work divided into work package 1, 2, 3, and 4. Below each work package, as I said earlier, I can define the activities for all the work packages or first work package alone and then next work package. When I start doing that work package, before that, I can plan for that. That is called as a rolling wave planning. This is called as a decomposition. So for this, let's say the task which I have to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now I have not sequenced the activities. The sequencing the activity would mean only after activity A is done, I can do activity B and C can be started together, but they are dependent upon activity A. Activity A has to be finished first. Activity D can be started only after activity B is finished. Activity E is started only after activity C is finished. And activity F can be done only after D and E are completed. Right, so this is sequencing the activities. I'm going to estimate the activity resources, which would be utilized over here, and then I will estimate the duration. So resources, the number of resources, it um, determines how many number of hours or how many number of days or months I'm going to take for each activity. If I have more number of resources available, then I can do the activity, I can do the entire work faster. If I have lesser number of people available with me, I might not be able to speed up the work. At the same point of time, even if I have more number of people, I need the skilled workforce. If I need to train them, if they are freshers out of college, I might not be able to get the work done faster with them the way I can get it done from my experienced resource, right? So all this information about the estimate activity resources is coming from HR, human resource, and it is also dependent upon the cost, right? More the cost that I have available, if a budget is not a constraint, I can hire the best of the resources. If cost is a constraint, I don't have liberty of hiring the skilled resources for my project. Then eventually I go ahead and, so after estimating the activity duration, my planning is done. So this is where my planning is completed. Now I need to execute it. While executing, or rather, during execution, the first step is I go ahead and develop my schedule. So this diagram itself is the development of the entire schedule. This is how my project would be done. I would first go ahead and do activity A. So that is the develop schedule. And then I need to control my schedule. For example, let's say this is how I planned for. On this axis, I have cost, and this axis, I have time. Initially, when the project manager is only there and the pre-assigned team members are there, the cost would not go up. But then suddenly, when execution stage happens, the cost will spiral up. And then towards the end of the project, resources are released. So it's going to look like a S-curve. This is also called as a spend curve. And the right word for this one is the S-curve. Right? This is what I planned for. And the planning was 1, 2, 3 months. Right? So this is, let's say, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. 3 months down the line, I should have spent $20,000, right? So this becomes my planned value, how much I should have spent. Now I can easily find out how much I've actually spent. I can reconcile the entire amount and find out how much I've spent. Let's say this is what I've spent till now, and this becomes my actual cost, right? So this is actual cost is $30,000, right? So I need to control it. I need to ensure that I control this. I cannot allow, with this pace, I'm obviously going to overshoot my budget. I will exceed my budget, which I don't want to allow, which would not be in interest of the project. So I need to control it. I need to somehow bring it back onto the plan, right? Either bring it back on the plan, or I need a change request to be initiated to get more budget. One of these two has to happen, right? So this is controlling the schedule, right? This is how I control the schedule. And so plan schedule management, as I said earlier as well, you don't need to remember all these inputs, tools, and techniques and the output. All that you need to remember is why you don't need to remember, because the tool and technique mentioned over here are just the indicators. You might use these, you might use some other tool and technique, you might use combination of tools and techniques. It's completely left up to you. For example, you all are aware of how soccer is played. PMP is, if you have to compare PMP with soccer game, PMP is just telling you that in soccer, this is how you play the game. This is the framework. These are the rules and regulations. This is how you can strategize, but eventually in the game, the strategy is left up to you, right? PMP is not going to say that every game, if it's the first game, this is how you strategize, second game, this is how you strategize. No, strategy is left up to you, right? You're the captain, you have to strategize yourself for the game. And depending upon how your progress is, you might change your strategy as well during the game. Similarly, in PMI, PMI teaches you all the all the best practices of the project management industry. It gives you a framework. If you hit the ball outside, it's going to be offside. If you hit the ball in your own goal, it's going to be your self goal, right? So PMP teaches you the basic rules and regulations. It doesn't teach you the strategy. Strategy is completely left up to you. So the tool and technique using which we can plan the schedule management is the expert judgment. Expert can obviously come back and say that what are the different things which we can plan, what are the things that we need to mention in the plan document for managing my schedule, analytical techniques, and the meeting. And to give you an example of the analytical technique, let me take an example here, and this is one of the PMI question. So let's say I have to find out how many resources, how many number of days it would take for me to do each activity, right? So I have to find out I have to develop the schedule. So I have to first find out the number of days. One is I can straight away go and ask my team members how many days it would take. They say 5 days for this activity. All right, you have 5 days. Go ahead and do it. That's one way. Second way is I ask my team members if something goes wrong, if everything is right, if there is no problem in the world, if you don't face any risk, how fast would you be able to do this work? They say optimistically it is 3 days that I can do the work. You say that, okay, assuming that most likely how many days it would take. For example, when you go to office every day and then somebody asks you how fast or how quickest you are able to reach at any one of time, what is the earliest that you have been able to reach office? Mention that maybe I have the earliest that I've reached office was one fine day when there was no traffic and because of some holiday, I reached in 15 minutes, right? Most likely, how many number of, what's the time that you take to reach office? You say that I take 30 minutes. And then pessimistically, if there is too much of traffic or whatever problem happens, on the way there is an accident, on the way there is a tire puncture, a tire has gone flat, how many number of hours would you take to come to office? You say that, okay, in that situation, I would take around 120 minutes, which is 2 hours. Similarly, over here, the optimistic number which the team has given for task A is 3 days. Most likely, they say 5 days. And pessimistically, they say it's going to take 15 days, right? So these are three numbers which I've accumulated from a team member. I can add all these three and take an average of that, which is division by 3, and I will get some number. This is called as program evaluation and review technique. This is an analytical technique, right? I'm doing some analysis on how many number of days it would take. Other way is, so this was a very old method, and this was called as a PERT, program evaluation and review technique. Using this, what used to happen is earlier, now if you see pessimistic is lot skewed. Most likely every time you would be reaching in 5 days or you should be able to do it in 5 days. But because of this technique, you might get around 7.5 to 8 days as an average. So you're unnecessarily keeping additional days with you, which is not correct. So statisticians, they did some analysis. They said that this is not fine. We need to give more weightage to the most likely. So they came up with a more refined formula of this particular, they came up with a more refined formula of the PERT. They came up with optimistic plus 4 times most likely plus pessimistic. So how many values are there? 4 times most likely is 4, optimistic is 5th, pessimistic is 6th. So we're going to divide this by 6 to get the estimation of number of days, or you can estimate the number of days, you can estimate the cost, you can estimate the resources, whatever you want to estimate, you can estimate the impact of the risk. Anything that you want to estimate using analytical technique, you can do it with this. This updated formula is called as the beta distribution, right? So if in the exam, if they say find out using PERT, you would going to use divide by 3. If they say specifically beta distribution, then it will be divided by 6. And if it is not mentioned in the examination and these 3 values are given, then the estimation is by default going to be divided by 3, right? So this is how you would do it in the examination. Right. Give me a moment. Let me just finish my tea and then we will move forward. Just a moment. All right. So let's move forward.
Hey, Bhupendra.
Yeah.
I think I need that example once again. I didn't get it correctly. Can you please?
Sure.
Because I think you mentioned 3 days and the most likely and the pessimistic approach divide by 3. So I just wanted to get the words clearly on it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let me ask you this thing. Do you travel to office every day, or you work from home
You travel to office every day
every day? What is the pessimistic if there is a lot of traffic on the way? You travel by car, or you travel by train, or how do you travel?
by car.
Okay. If there is a flat tire, or on the freeway if there is a accident and because of which there's a huge traffic jam, how much time do you think it would take for you to reach office?
When if the office time is like half an hour, it might take like 2 or 3 hours as well.
Okay, so let's say 120 minutes is your pessimistic approach. And
Okay.
most likely you mentioned that it's going to take half an hour, right?
Yeah.
If there is no traffic on the way and you find all the signals green, you're pretty much able to reach faster if there was a holiday. How quickly are you able to reach?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So this 20 minutes is your optimistic number. Most likely is 30 minutes and pessimistic is 120 minutes, right? So you can take Perth says to calculate, similarly you can estimate for your the time taken for your activities as well. Now Perth says add all these three numbers, 20 plus 30 plus 120. And how many numbers do we have here? Three numbers. So we divide this by 3, right? This becomes my Perth, program evaluation and review technique. Now, with this, what would happen? Lot of weightage is going to 120, whereas generally most of the times I'm reaching office in 30 minutes. But a lot of weightage is going to 120. 120 is skewing my numbers. It's pulling my numbers towards the extreme. I don't want that to happen. So statisticians have come up with an updated formula. What is that formula? New formula is called as a beta distribution. That is optimistic plus I need to multiply 30 with 4 times, right? So with that, what I'm doing is I'm giving 4 times weightage to most likely. And then plus 120 divided by, instead of 3, I have 6 figures over here. So I'm going to divide this by 6, right? That is beta distribution. And from where are you getting this pessimistic, most likely, and optimistic? The way I asked you today, you are an expert, you are traveling. So I asked you. Similarly, in your team, the team members are experts. You are going to ask your team members to be able to calculate and estimate the duration or the resources or the cost, anything that you want to estimate, okay, using this method. Is that clear?
Okay. So basically you'll still have the optimistic, the same number, but the most likely will be multiplied by 4 and divided by 6.
Right. And why is that? It is because I want to
6.
give more weightage to the most likely number. Generally, a lot of times
Or
I would be reaching office in 30 minutes, but here I'm not giving weightage. The earlier averaging, I'm not giving weightage to most likely. I want to give more weightage to it. Statisticians have said if you multiply this with 4, the eventual value which you get is most likely the real number at which you would be able to complete that task.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bhupendra.
You're welcome. All right, so in the plan schedule management, we are going to plan how the project will be done and what will be done in the project. We are going to move into what are the things which are mentioned in the plan document. The plan document will contain the details of how the project would be done. What are the tools and techniques that you will follow? Will you follow PERT? Will you follow beta distribution? Will you just ask the project team members and document it over there? Or will you just go ahead with another way of calculating? It would be probably just ask team members how many days it will take for task A. So they say for task A it's going to take, let's say, 2 days. For task B it's going to take, let's say, 5 days, right? Task C it's going to take another 3 days. So overall my project should be done in 10 days. On top of it, remember the project buffer that we had to build, which is based on my risk analysis from the critical chain, if you remember. So I have identified risk 1, I have identified risk 2. These are the two risks which can happen. How do I calculate the value of the risk? Impact into probability. So I will find out what is the impact. Impact is, let's say, 2 days. What is the probability? 50%. Then my value would come as 1 day. So I find out what is the eventual buffer I need to keep it for each risk. I add it on top of the total duration. Let's say it comes as 2 days. So my total duration which I communicate to my stakeholders is 12 days. I can follow this method as well, which is called as the expected monetary value, impact into probability. Are you going to follow this? Are you going to follow PERT? Are you going to follow beta distribution? Are you just going to ask the team members and communicate directly to the stakeholders? Are you going to ask the team members, and if they say 5 days, you're going to give them only 2.5 days? Some people do that. Some people just slash it down by 50% and tell the team members that, okay, you said it's going to be done in 5 days, but I know, and I'm very confident that you would be able to do it in lesser number of days. Take 3 days. 3 days is the time period that you have. Because of whatever reason, you convince them and make them do it faster. With that, what you're doing is you're trying to build buffer within the activity itself. If they say 5 days, you're communicating to the stakeholders as 5 days, but trying to push your team to get the work done in 3 days. Some people do it that way as well. Which tool and technique are you going to follow eventually will be mentioned in my plan document. From PMI perspective, you need to be completely transparent with your stakeholders. That is why you will be mentioning all of this into your plan document. And of course, if there is any change later on, how would that change be managed? How would that change be initiated? How would that change be controlled? All that will be mentioned in my plan document, right? And then eventually I'll go ahead and define the activities. So defining the activities is I go ahead and define the activity that needs to be done in the project. So let's say there are activities A, B, C, D. These are the activities which have to be done to complete the entire project. So I've defined it. As you would have seen, I have not defined what is the time taken at the moment. I have not defined what is the what's the resources that would be required. I've not defined anything at the moment. I've just defined the activities. Next is so yeah, this is how it looks like. When I define the activities, work package, below the work package, I have defined the list of activities. So below the WBS, work breakdown structure, the next level is activities. And this is where I define the activities which has to be done. Now, I have defined the activities. What I need to do next, I have to go ahead and estimate the activity resources. I have to go ahead and sequence activities and then estimate the resources. To define the activities, the way you see it on the diagram, this is called as the decomposition. Remember, the decomposition was the same tool and technique which we used to prepare WBS. You're decomposing it to one more further level. That is why it would be called as decomposition, to come up with all the activities. Now, let's say you are coming up with the activities only for design. And for development, you will do it when you reach the development stage. At the moment, you're not doing it, right? So that would be called as rolling wave planning. Plan for the wave which is approaching you, and plan for the remaining for the further wave whenever that other wave approaches you, right? That is called as the rolling wave planning. These are the two things which you can do when you're planning the activities, either in detail for the entire project or for the stage which is in front of you, and the further stages not at the moment. Whenever we reach that stage, at that moment, if you want to plan, that is called as the rolling wave planning. So these are the two tools and techniques to define the activities. Once we have defined the activities, we need to go in and sequence the activities. To sequence the activities, remember we said after doing activity A, we can do activity B. And only after activity A is done, B and C can be done together, right? So the example that we quoted over there, that is called as the precedence diagramming method, which is before doing activity A, before doing activity B, activity A has to be done, which is preceding activity B. That is called as precedence diagramming method, and also can also be referred as a dependency determination. Here it is very clear that B is dependent upon A. I can do activity B only after doing activity A. Let me take an example here. Let's say you're building your own house. You're constructing your own house. Would you be able to build your walls and the roof without building the foundation? You cannot, right? You first have to build the foundation of the house. First have to build the foundation of the house, only then you will be able to build the pillars. And then once the pillars are constructed, you need to construct the beam, which is a supporting material for your roof. Then you will be constructing your walls and the roof, right? So these are sequencing the activities only once foundation is done, then you can do the next activity. Without doing the without doing the first activity, you cannot do the next activity. This is called as a dependency determination. What are the different dependencies that can happen? Let me show it to you. Different dependencies that we have, and this is again a PMI question. Different dependencies that we have is finish to start, finish to finish, and start to finish, right? These are the different dependencies that can happen between the activities. Let me explain each one of these relationships to you, logical relationships to you. Finish to start is finish activity A to start activity B. This is the most common, right? Generally, you will be following this particular dependency. You have to finish one activity to start next activity. Give me a moment, guys. Right. So finish to start is the most common form of the relationship. For example, as I said earlier, you have to finish the foundation before constructing the wall when you're constructing your own house, right? So that is the finish to start. Start to start. So let's say you are trying to optimize your construction of the house. When you have started the construction of the wall, your construction is over. Now there are two tasks which are pending. One is electrician, another one is painting. On one portion of the wall, if electrician is working, electrician has to start the work on one portion of the wall. Why? Because electrician would be, doing some kind of tinkering. He would be doing some kind of, he would damage the wall a little bit. Only after he's done with that portion of the wall, the painter can start the work in that portion of the wall. So the start to start relationship over here is only after electrician has started his work in that portion, the painter can start his work, right? Painter cannot start his work before electrician. It has to be first, electrician has to start his work. Why? If painter starts first, then electrician would damage the look of the wall, and overall the finishing of the wall would not be that great. So that is start to start finishing, start to start logical relationship. Finish to finish, look at the other way around as well now. Electrician has to finish the work for painter to say my work is finished. If electrician has not finished his work, painter cannot say my work is finished. Again, same reasons. Electrician would be damaging the wall to install the sockets or whatever he's supposed to do. Only after he's done, painter will do the finishing touch, and then he can say my work is finished, right? Another example of, then we have start to finish, right? So you have to start first, start the second activity, that is activity B, to say my first activity is finished. For example, if you have been to India, and then if you see, I see that that doesn't happen in the United States, so we don't have security guards over there in front of the ATM machines. But in India, we do have security guards every time present in front of the ATM machine. One security guard whose shift is going on, he cannot finish his shift and cannot leave till the time the next security guard for the next shift comes and sits over there. So till the time the next security guard has started his shift, the first security guard cannot say my shift is finished, right? Even if he's late, this security guard has to be there. So that's an example of start to finish. These are the dependencies that we can have. Now, further, if you want to divide the dependency, you can say that mandatory dependency and discretionary dependency. What is mandatory? You cannot really start the work, start the construction of the wall without completing the foundation of the house. If that is done, your wall itself will be very weak and has a huge threat of falling down. So you have to finish your foundation. That's a mandatory logic which is built up. Another example of that would be when you are doing your work in any of the country, you have to follow the law of the land and pay taxes accordingly. That's again a mandatory logic, mandatory dependency. Discretionary would be when your SME comes and says that, okay, this is how you plan, but if we deviate from this little bit and do this first, or change the mechanism a little bit, when SME is giving his input, you have a way of deviating from it. There is no it's not mandatory that you follow whatever SME has said, but if you're going to get a strategic advantage by following SME, subject matter expert, then that is called as a discretionary. Mandatory is without which you cannot survive. You have to do it. Discretionary is where SME is giving you certain information. Without that also you can do it, but you're getting some strategic benefit, right? That's a mandatory and discretionary dependencies. Last one is within that as well, you can have the internal and the external dependency. Internal is when you are waiting, when the dependency is within the project team, and external is, let's say, part of your work is done by any other project team, external project team or vendor, and you're dependent upon that. Normally it happens, right? We are when we are doing a project, part of our work is getting delivered by a third party, by a supplier, and we are waiting for them to deliver their product or service before we move forward. So that is the external dependency, right? So these are the dependencies that we need to consider while sequencing the activity. We need to look at the finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish, mandatory, discretionary, internal, external. All these has to be considered while creating the sequence of the activities, while creating the diagram, the precedence diagramming method. While creating the diagram, all these dependencies has to be considered. From examination perspective, what they will do is they will give you a situation. They will say that this is the situation. You are a project manager of X project, and you are following your normal, you have planned for your project, and you're following the mechanism, and SME comes and says that, gives you a detour, gives you a different mechanism to complete the task, and then mentions that this is going to give you a strategic benefit, and you follow it. This is an example of discretionary dependency, right, guys? So this is not a mandatory. The SME has given you some information, so that is a discretionary dependency, right? So that's an example of discretionary dependency.
Hey, Pupendra.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I'm trying to understand a thin line between the start to start and finish to finish. I was able to get finish to start and start to finish, but start to start and finish to finish is little, I'm not able to get it. Because the electrician and the painter, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically the way you think. Once he finishes, then only he can complete, the other person can complete. So it can be start to finish as well, or finish to start as well, right?
The way I see it is, let me try to explain to you. Give me a minute. So
Yeah.
one, this is very rare. This is going to be very, very rare, dependency which we have, but this is how it would look like. When you're designing or when you're doing your work, let's say this is activity A. Activity A is your electrician. Activity A is taking, let's say, 5 days, right? So this is activity A, start to end, 5 days, start till end. And activity B is the painter. So this is only getting started after activity A is started and getting finished before activity, only after this activity is finished, right? So this is the painter. This is the painter. He is also spending 5 days. Only after this portion of the work was done, right, he started. And then when this was done, he spent some more time to finish the entire work, to give the finishing touch, and then he finished his task, right? So both the dependencies come in the same example here. Does it make sense?
I'm still trying to understand, Bhupendra.
Okay. See, start to start is you have to start one activity, you start another activity. Without starting one activity, you cannot start another activity. Tell me this thing, so it's a discretionary dependency. It's not a mandatory dependency. But let's say what would happen if painter has started his work without electrician starting his work on the wall? So let's say electrician is still supposed to install all the sockets, all the things on the wall. He has not done his work, but painter starts his work. What would happen?
I mean, it would damage the wall.
Yeah, right. So later on, there would be fingerprints on the wall because the electrician is gonna, he would be installing while doing that. His fingerprints would be there on the wall. It would not look nice. While installing some things, he would do drilling, and so it would not look nice. You need a proper finishing. Otherwise, it looks like a makeshift kind of arrangement. It doesn't look nice. In this situation, I don't want that to happen. One, I can ensure that my electrician has finished his work, only then I ask my painter to start his work, right? That is one thing which I can do. But I don't want that as well, because unnecessarily for those many number of days, my work is getting delayed. I can complete my entire house, let's say in 2 months. If I have electrician do his entire work, and then painter start his work, my work will get delayed by 5 days. Now it doesn't matter much when I'm building just one house. Imagine I am in real estate industry. Even a single day delay is very important for me, because I can utilize painter and the same electrician in some other location, right? So it's time is money for me. What I want to do is I want to optimize it. So what I do is I tell my electrician that, okay, you cannot come back to the same wall. You have to, whatever area you start, you have to finish it and then move to the next portion. Electrician starts his work. Once electrician has done, let's say one wall, he has done it, right? So how many walls are there in one room? There are 4 walls. He has done one wall. As soon as he is done, I can say that, okay, this wall is done. Now I get the electrician and painter start, work together. Whatever electrician is finished, painter will do it, right? So electrician has finished one portion of the wall. Now painter comes and starts painting it. I know that there is nothing else pending in that particular wall, correct? So there is no other rework which will be happening, which is absolutely fine for me. So in this situation, electrician has started his work, only then the painter has started his work. It's not that electrician has finished his work, then the painter has started his work. Only after electrician has started his work, painter has started his work. Make sense? Perfect?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And how about finish to finish?
Finish
Once
this.
he has completed?
Exactly. Same example, take it forward now. Take it towards the end. One wall out of the 4 walls, when electrician started his work, towards the end now, once the electrician is finishing the work, only then after electrician finishes the entire 4 walls of the room, then painter can do his finishing work, the touch of whatever he's supposed to do, and then only he can say this room is done. We both are done with
All
this room.
right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Now it's clear, Bhupendra.
yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so okay. Next is the lead and the lag, right? So this is very simple concept. I think you have seen this already when I was giving the example of electrician and the painter. Lead is, let me show it to you how lead looks like and how lag looks like. So this is how we prepare the Gantt chart, right? So activity A is done in, let's say, 5 days. And then when I'm preparing, doing it for activity B, I would mention it over here in this axis, right? So this is my activity B. Now let's say before activity A is finished, I can start the activity B a little early. I don't have to wait for the activity A to finish. This is when I can get some lead time, when I can do the activity before one activity is finished. I can start one activity before another activity is finished. And there is a lead which I'm gaining over here of some number of days. This is called as a lead, right? Same in the example of the electrician and the painter. I was gaining some lead by doing the activities in parallel, right? So that is lead. Another example is the exact opposite of that is when you have cemented your wall. So let's say this is activity A, that is cementing your wall. So there is a worker working in the house, and he is just doing the plastering, the cementing of the wall. After the wall is cemented, you cannot start any other work on, be it electrician, be it painter, you cannot start any other work on the wall. You have to wait for a couple of days for the wall to dry up, right? So there is some wait period here for you to ensure that the wall is dried up. I don't know if you've seen the house construction or not, but this is what happens. They first cement the wall, and every day they keep on watering it to ensure that the cement hardens up. So there is a limit. There is some wait in between these two activities. There's nothing you can do apart from waiting. You have to wait for the walls to dry up, for the cement to dry up, so that it becomes rock solid, it becomes hard before you start next activity, right? This waiting period is called as lag. You cannot do anything in between this time period. You just have to wait. So that is called as the lag, right? Another example of that would be, let's say, you receive the material. The material is transported into the workshop. It's the any material which has been stored in the workshop. Now that material is just waiting over there before it is installed into any of the machinery. That is a lag, right? When you're waiting for some activity, after one activity, you cannot do anything. You're just waiting. There, because of mandatory dependency, you cannot do anything. You have to just wait. Then it is called as the lag, right? And it would not be quite often. For example, in case of development, let's say you have built, you are doing the project in Agile. You have developed whatever was supposed to be developed in one sprint. Now you have given out for validation to your client, and the client is validating it. Till the time you get acceptance, formal acceptance from the client, you cannot do anything. You're waiting for the formal acceptance from the client. Before you start next sprint, you have to wait for that formal acceptance. Maybe it's just a couple of hours, but that is a lag. Make sense? Yeah?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Bhupendra.
Uh, Praveen and others, are you also following? Are you completely on board with with whatever has been shared? This chapter is very, very important. There is nothing that we need to mug in this. It's only
Okay.
going to start after so mugging part will start only after, I think, the next week, not till tomorrow. So at the moment, it's
Okay.
all about understanding, and this is very important. A lot of questions will come from time, scope, and cost. Are you completely on board?
Mm-hmm.
Completely following the content?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
You were following.
sure,
Yeah.
we are following. Can you, I mean, like it takes one more time to reevaluate and understand. So, are you recording, Bhupender?
Yes, I am doing it. I'm recording it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is how your sequencing activities would look like eventually. Your sequencing activities only after starting, you can do activity A, C, F, and G together. Only after activity A is done, you are doing activity B because there's a dependency on activity B. Activity B can be done only after activity A is done. There is a lead over here, so activity A, C, F, and G can be done together, right? Only after activity C is done, D and E can be done, and this is how you have prepared you have done the sequencing of the activity. So this is how you have prepared it, right? So this is how it would look like after sequencing the activities. Next step is now you need to understand the activity resources and the activity duration. To understand the activity resources, how many activity resources it would take, you have multiple options, right? You have multiple options to understand how many resources it would take. What are those options? These options are, you can look at the alternative analysis. If I if I have the experts to it, if I have the experienced guys to it who have already got around 5 to 6 years of experience, then I probably am going to take around 8 resources. But if I need, if I'm only able to get the freshers, then probably I require 11 resources. So I would require more number of resources if they are freshers compared to the people, compared to the experienced resources. I would not require that many resources if I get experienced people in my team, right? So that is alternative analysis. Explore other alternates. Published estimation data is in past projects in your company, the company that you're working for, in the past similar projects for this kind of activity, it had taken, for example, let's say you are in real estate. You are building houses for your customers. For building 30-40 site house, 30 square feet to 40 square feet house, small house, you required, the construction workers were 10, let's say construction workers were required, then 2 electricians were required, 1 painter was required, and so on. So that is the published estimation data. You just look at that and estimate and say that, okay, these many resources would be required for my project, right? So that is the published estimation data. When you have a previous done projects, when you have done the projects, a similar project in the past, and using the same information, about the previous projects and coming up with an estimate that is called as a published estimation data. Another one would be bottom-up estimating. To give you an example of bottom-up estimating, let me go back to this diagram. Let's say you have how many activities over here? Activity A, B, C, D, E, F, H, I, G, right? And this is part of, let me show it to you here. Yeah, these are the activities which you are doing, right? So these are the activities which you have. Now, let's say for activity A, for send email, you require one resource, that is admin guy. Gather requirements, you require 2 BAs. Conduct the meeting, you require one facilitator, so just one more person is required to conduct the meetings. And to start designing, you require a technical resource, that is another 2 people, right? So for this particular work package, you require 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for this work package, you require 6 people. Let's say for this work package, you require another 3 people. So for this entire designing, you require 9 people, right? And similarly for development, you require another 11 people. So for the entire website, you require 20 people. Make sense? This is where we are doing a bottom-up estimation. We are estimating for the task level, then aggregating it all together to find out how many number of people would be required for one work package, combine the work packages which are there in each of the levels, and come up for each level how many number of resources would be required, combine that all together, and you will have it for the entire work how many number of people would be required. This is called as the bottom up estimation, not top down. Here we are finding out the resources for the bottom layer and then estimating for the top layer, right? So we are doing the bottom up estimation. Make sense?
So which one is good one, whether it's a bottom-up approach or the top one?
Top one would not be, there is no top-down approach. Top-down approach would not be there because, I cannot find out for how many people would be required for website development unless I know for each and every activity how many people would be required. Now, the different approaches that we have over here is bottom-up estimation, and then we also have the past estimation data available with us with the past projects, right? So an alternative analysis as well. I cannot say which one is the best one. All these two, otherwise I would have said that, okay, you only follow this particular tool and technique. It depends upon your situation. It depends upon what the situation that you have. For example, you are in a startup. In that startup, you have never done the past project. So you don't have any published data available with you, right? So you cannot rely on that at all. If you are working in a company which has similar sort of projects done in the past, you can obviously go into that and find it out. It is a very quick method. Very fast you would be able to develop it, your schedule, right? So the benefit of past published available estimation data available with you is it's very quick. Whereas here, if you have to estimate, you have to speak to your experts, you have to spend a lot of time period brainstorming with them to find out for each activity how much time period, to estimate for entire work how many days it would take. So it's slow. But then again, accuracy-wise, both are pretty accurate. The past is based on the reality. This is based on, this is going to get you the commitment of the team. So team is going to do everything possible to ensure that they meet that commitment, whatever they have given, right? So both from the efficiency perspective, effectiveness perspective, both are pretty effective. But then I won't say this is better, that is better. It depends upon your situation.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we pretty much have spent around 1 hour in our first session. Let's take a first break of half an hour, and let's get back after half an hour, and then we'll finish the remaining part of the time management. Yeah.
All right.
Hi guys, welcome back.
Yeah, Bhupender.
Yeah, hi. I'm so sorry for being slightly late. I was actually preparing my breakfast. All right, so we're going to get started with, we have already spoken about the estimate activity resources. Now we have to go ahead and estimate the duration. Duration, we have already spoken a lot about duration, but then let me explain what the different tools and techniques, some more tools and techniques rather, which can help us estimate the activity duration. These tools and techniques that we have are expert judgment, analogous, parametric, three-point estimation, group decision making, and reserve analysis. Let me explain each one. Expert judgment is very simple, where you approach your team members and ask, for this activity, how many days it would take. They say 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, whatever they say, you take it that way. That is your expert judgment, right? Analogous techniques is, let's say if you have, remember we have spoken about past published estimation data. Now we have done this work earlier also in the past, right? Let's say we are in real estate industry and we have made a lot of houses like these, the row houses like these, which we are selling now to the client. The client has come up and said that build a house for me of 30-40 site, right? Build a 3-bedroom house for me, which should be in 30-40 sites. So specifications given by the customer is 30 square feet by 40 square feet, and he needs a 3-bedroom house. When I built this house in the past, it took me, so we're talking about the duration here, but I will give you slightly more details here, how it is connected to some other knowledge areas as well. When I did something like this project in the past, I already have my past project data available with me, so I can look into my past information. And I saw that for this kind of project, it took me 1 year, right? So what is 1 year? This is the time frame. It took me 1 year. This is my time. And it costed me, for the cost, it is, let's say, $100,000. So from dollar perspective, it is $100,000 it costed me, right? So now we are estimating using the same technique of analogous. This is called as analogous. Using the same technique of estimation, I am estimating time and cost, right? So the same technique will be repeated in cost as well. Now, analogous is when I'm looking at the past project information and taking the same information as I had in the past, right? To calculate how much it would cost me to do the same project this time, right? So analogous, I'm not doing any mathematics. I'm just taking the information of the past project and utilizing that information. That is my analogous technique. Remember, analogous is where you don't do any kind of mathematics. You don't do any kind of mathematics over here. On the other hand, parametric is also dependent on the past data. But here, in the past, 30-40 site is 13 to 40 is 1200 square feet. For building 1200 square feet, it took me 1 year, right? That means for 1 square feet, it should cost me 1 year divided by 1200 for 1 square feet. And if I have to build double the house, it should be into the number of square feet that I'm building, which is going to be 2400, double the size. In other words, this is going to take me 2 years to build the house, right? Here I'm doing some mathematics with it, with the past information available. So that is parametric. That's the only difference between analogous and parametric. Analogous is where you're utilizing the past information. Parametric is also utilizing the past information, but you're extrapolating the numbers. You're doing some mathematics to extrapolate the numbers. That is parametric estimation, right? So from the exam perspective, they will give you a situation and they say this is an example of which estimation. Analogous estimation or parametric estimation. If there is a mathematics which is involved, you will say parametric. If it is no mathematics involved, it's just the past information data taken up, then it is analogous estimation. Now, 3-point estimation, we have already had discussion about it. 3-point estimation is optimistic plus most likely plus pessimistic divided by 3, right? So this is my 3-point estimation, which is also called as PERT, program evaluation and review technique. This is also called as program evaluation review technique. If I give more weightage to most likely, which is I multiply this with 4 and divide this by 6, then that kind of estimation would be called as the beta distribution, right? So that is the beta distribution. That is my 3-point estimation. Now, as a group, I can get, if you have worked in the agile projects, you have your team members sit, and as a group, you decide. As a group, you say that, okay, for this kind of activity, assign the user stories, or you give the story points. So based on that, they estimate the time. That is a group decision-making technique, where the group is deciding as a, where people are deciding as a group. It's not influenced by SME. It's not influenced by the newbie. It's somewhere in between, because you would be working as a team. It's not a, you don't have to estimate as per a team which is new. Give me a moment, guys. Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Ajit. Good morning. Yeah, sorry guys. So group decision making technique is where we are deciding as a group. We are sitting with the team member and deciding as a group. What is reserve analysis? Reserve analysis is, let me try and draw this diagrammatically here. Let's say you have built the project budget, right? It could be budget, it could be timeline. Let's say this is your timeline, which is 1 year. You have decided your timeline, which is 1 year. Now this particular timeline is comprised of all the activities. So A activity, B activity, C activity, D activity, and so on. So all the activities, when aggregated all together, bottom up estimation, then you come up with 1 year is your overall time period that you will take for your project, right? Now, this 1 year that you're going to take for your project is if in case everything goes right. What if there is any risk which gets impacted? So you also do risk analysis. You identify various risks, which is risk 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say there are only 4 risks which is going to impact your project. So in the risk, you have to identify 2 figures here, which again your team members are going to give. There is no hard and fast rule of how do you find these figures. This is from the expert judgment. Impact and probability. You have to find out the impact. Let's say impact is 2 days. Probability is 50%. Probability is always going to be in percentage. So 50% 2 days. And then you have risk 2, let's say the impact is 10 days and probability is only 10%, and so on. So 2 days into 50% is 1 day, 10 days into 10% is again 1 day. That way, if you add it up, let's say overall your reserve that you need to maintain is 1 month. So your project duration is going to be the estimate of your activity duration, or your project duration would be 1 year, 1 month, right? You need to keep reserve for your project. Now this bar depicts your overall project. This is the reserve that you're keeping. This reserve is based on the known risks which project manager has calculated. Again, the keyword over here is the known risks. For the known risk, you will have impact and the probability. Impact into probability will give you a number. Add all that up together. This will help you build your reserve, contingency reserve. This is called as a contingency reserve. Contingency reserve. On top of it, the management, right, will keep typically 10 to 20% they will keep. Why they will keep something extra before communicating to the client? So let's say this 1 year was for aggregation of all the activities, 1 month is the reserve that you have kept, and 1 month the management itself has added and communicate to the client. Why was there a need of communicating 1 year, 2 months to the client? Why we could not have communicated 1 year, 1 month to the client? It's because you have planned for known risks. What if there is something unknown which impacts your project, right? For your unknown, you cannot plan, you cannot do any kind of mathematics, it's unknown. What is the impact, what is the probability? It's unknown, right? So for that, typically 10 to 20% on top of it is kept by the management. Now this additional contingency reserve and the management reserve is called as a reserve analysis. All these will help you find out the overall or rather budget for your, create a budget for your project, and the same activities are used to calculate the overall time period, the final duration of your project as well. It's the same tools and techniques, it's the same procedure to find out the time, the same procedure to find out the cost. This is how you find out the entire duration, and these are the different tools and techniques. Which tool and technique that you will follow? It depends upon what you have mentioned in your plan document and whatever has been approved. Now, couple of things that you need to consider over here. Analogous and parametric. Sometime back I was asked by I think Shrisha that which tool and technique is better. In that I was not able to answer, but this one, 3-point estimation is 3-point estimation and reserve analysis, the group decision making, these are the ones which are generally followed in the industry. The problem with this one is it's time consuming. Analogous and parametric, it's very fast, but it's not accurate. It's not very accurate. In the past, it took me 1 year to build the same house. Now my maturity has gone up. Why would I take 1 year? I probably am going to take 8 months, 9 months. My maturity has gone up, right? It should not take me 1 year. So it's very quick, but not very accurate. Similarly, it's for
what is that difference between analogous and parametric estimations? Like,
sure,
like analogous, we are taking past project experience, right? Like
right.
How we will come. Yeah.
Right. Remember, Praveen, we discussed this thing in the past. To build 1200 square feet flat, it took me 1 year. Right? This is analogous. I have not done any mathematics over here. Now, somebody asked me, okay, for 2400 square feet flat, how much it would take time? For 2400 square feet flat, I can do 1 year into, it's double, right? So it should take me double. I'm doing mathematics over here. When you are doing some kind of calculation, that is called as parametric. Both are based on your past data, but when you're doing extrapolating the numbers, then it is parametric.
Okay.
When you're taking the same information, it is analogous.
Got it.
Yeah. Now, both of these, analogous and parametric, are not very accurate. I said that earlier as well. These are not accurate because let's for a moment deviate from the time and come to cost. In the past, it took me $100,000 to build the house. Doesn't matter, it's going to take me $100,000 now. The cost of the raw material, maybe the cement cost has doubled. Maybe the steel cost has doubled. So what is the guarantee? Even the labor cost has maybe gone up. So what is the guarantee it's going to take me $100,000? It might take me $150,000. It is very, very quick method of finding out the estimate, but it is not very accurate. Always remember that. The accurate is expert judgment, 3-point estimation, group decision making, and reserve analysis help you to build the right budget, more accurate budget, or the time duration. And analogous and parametric, these are used when you require the results very quick, right? When you don't have time to get the results and your stakeholders are saying, okay, can you give me a ballpark number? Then you can give the ballpark number using this particular analogous or parametric estimations. Okay. Right, so this slide also talks about keeping some sort of buffer, and the buffer is nothing but your reserve, the reserve that you keep. right? Always remember the buffer that you keep is based on two things. The buffer which the project manager keeps is based, it's not that you are keeping buffer just like that, without any mathematics, without any calculations. Project manager can keep the buffer only doing risk analysis, which is impact into probability. On top of it, for unknowns, the management will keep the buffer themselves, which is called as a management buffer. Your buffer is called as a contingency reserve, which is calculated as impact into probability. All right, so this is how you calculate the buffer. All right, so now you will develop the entire schedule using the critical path, critical chain, resource optimization techniques, and so on. Now, critical paths, at least 2 to 3 questions will come through critical paths. So let me have a discussion about critical paths for a brief moment. Let me explain you what critical paths is all about. Let me open up an example and show it to you. Give me a moment here. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm trying to open up another PPT to pull up the example. Give me 2 minutes here. Right, so I have opened it up now. Let's say this is what your project is all about, right? So your project is, you start the project on with task A, right? The start task A is the first task, then only after task A is done, B can be done. After B is done, C can be done. And similarly, after A is done, B and D can be done together. After D is done, E can be done, and F can be done only after C and E are done, right? So this is a simple example, very simple example of a project, very small project. Of course, the critical path is going to be much more bigger in your real projects, but for the explanation purposes, we are trying to use this example here. Now, A3 indicates over here, so let me, always in this box, it is going to be early start. Right, so this is going to be early start, this is going to be late start, early finish, and this will be late finish. This is how the boxes will depict. This box indicates the duration, and this box would indicate the float. Right, so this box would indicate the float that we have in the project. Now, at the moment, you might not, even though you have seen the video, at the moment, you might be slightly confused about all these terms, but I'm bringing you up to all these terms, and I will explain you in in just a bit of moment. Let's say activity A can be done in 3 days. So the duration is given over here. Activity A is done in 3 days, B is done in 4 days, C is done in 6 days, D in 5, E in 8, and so on, right? This is how your project is done. Right. So this is how your project is done. Now, how early you will start the activity A? You will always start the activity on the first day itself, which is the 0th day. The first day of, in the PMI terms, this is how you would calculate it. You would say the first activity is done on the 0th day. Earliest you can start the activities on the first day itself, and that first day is called as the 0 day in terms of PMI. You can put it as 1 day also, but it's unnecessarily going to confuse you because for everywhere you have to add 1. That is why to eliminate that confusion, we always mention it as 0 here. 0 plus 3 is 3, right? So third day you can finish it. Oops. So this is going to be this is not late start. This is early finish. This is late start, right? So earliest you can start by 0 day and earliest you can finish this particular activity is by third day. Now the same 3 is going to carry forward over here because on the third day itself, 0, 1, 2. Second day you are completing. 0 plus 3 is 0, 1, 2, which is second day you're completing it. That means on the third day you can start the activity 4. I'm just going to take the third day. That means the start of the third day, your activity A is finished. If start of the third day, your activity A is finished, that means you can, on the same day, you can start activity B. So 3 comes over here, 3 plus 4 is 7. Similarly, 7 gets carried forward here. 7 plus 6 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So this will come as 13. Now, let's do it the other way around as well. On third day, this activity also can be started. D5 can be started. Now, D5 is 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 comes over here. 8 plus 8 is 16. Now, how early can I start my activity F when activity C and activity E both has to be finished together? Even if activity C is finished on 13th day, I have to wait for activity E to be finished, right? If I have to wait for activity E to be finished, that means the earliest I can start this activity is on 16th day. I cannot start it before that, right? So that's how this gets carried forward here. The higher number gets carried forward, and logic behind that is you cannot start the work before both the activities are finished. 16 plus 9 is 25. You don't want your project to be delayed, right? So you don't want your project to be delayed. The latest you can finish your project, this was the early finish. The latest that you want to finish your project is also on 25th day. So you're going to finish your project on 25th day. 25th minus 9 is 16. Now we'll start subtracting the numbers. 25 minus 25 is 0, right? Now 16 gets carried forward towards towards back side. Now 16 minus 8 is 8. 8 comes over here. 8 minus 5 is 3. Let's just fill all the numbers here. Now 16 minus 6 is 10. 10 comes back. 10 minus 4 is 6, right? Which one will go back? Latest I need to finish. So if I finish this activity on the 6th day, if I take 6 back, that means if I finish this activity on 6th day, can I start it by 3rd day? I cannot. I have to finish this activity on the 3rd day itself, right? So the lower number will get carried back. 3 minus 3 is 0. Let's calculate the float here. Here 16 minus 16, 0. 8 minus 8, 0. 3 minus 3, 0. And let's look at this side. 16 minus 13, 3. 10 minus 7, 3. That means your critical path is the path where you have 0 float, or the longest path. That becomes your critical path. So this is your critical path. This one is your critical path. That means even if you delay the activity by a single day on this path, your overall project will get delayed. And what is the float that you have over here in B4 and C6? In this one, the float is calculated over here. So that means this particular chain, both the activities B4 and C6 together, maximum that you can delay these activities is by 3 days without impacting the schedule of my project, right? Without impacting the schedule of my project, I can delay these activities by 3 days. So this is how you calculate the float. This is how you calculate the critical path, right? So from the exam, in the exam perspective, they will give you the situation. They will ask you to calculate the overall schedule. They might ask you to calculate the overall duration, the late start, the late finish, the earliest finished, the latest finish of the entire project, or they might ask you to calculate the float. Any of these things might come in the examination. Now, this was the entire details about the float for this particular project. More than this, if you want, what can be done is you need to go through that video once again, right? So that video which I shared earlier about the critical path, that has the complete details about how the critical path is calculated, both the forward pass and the backward pass. I want you to go through that video at least couple of times, and then you will be very clear with this. And this is very, 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 very important. At least 3 to 4 questions will come from just this one, and I don't want you to miss even a single question out of this. This is kind of make or break. 3 to 4 questions out of 200, it's huge, right? So be very comfortable with this particular topic, the critical path, how the critical path is calculated. It's not too complex, but yeah, you need to be comfortable with calculating the critical path. Okay, all right. So let me, and in this case, another concept is in this particular case. So let's say just this one more concept that we have over here is crashing. Now let's say I am today going to be doing the project in 25 days. What if I have been told by the sponsor that if you do the project in 20 days, if you do your project in 20 days, I will give you 10% incentive. So you will get 10% incentive if you are able to get the work done in 20 days. I need to now reduce the duration by 5 days. So the logic says, how can I do the reduce the duration? I can either try and do these activities on the critical path in parallel, whichever I can do in parallel, which is called as a fast tracking. Doing the activities in parallel on critical path, not on the non-critical path. On the critical path is called as the fast tracking. And other way of reducing the duration of these particular tasks is I can add more resources to it, right? Add more resources, that is called as crashing. You're crashing the schedule by adding more resources. That will involve more cost, right? So you find out what is the trade-off. If 10% incentive that you're going to get is higher than this trade-off adding more people, then you will go ahead with the crashing, right? Then you will crash the schedule. There's only one rule: crash the schedule for the activities only on the critical path, and secondly, only crash for the least expensive activity, right? So this is how you will crash the activity. Well, let me just check if there is anything else pending from the time management. Just a moment. Right, so eventually you will go ahead and control the schedule. To control the schedule, you will have, you will have the performance review. You will find out if you are ahead of schedule, you are behind the schedule, how you're doing. You will have the performance reviews with the team members. You will, let's say if you're ahead of schedule, right? Then you can afford to release probably 1 or 2 resources, and you can play around with the schedule to ensure that your cost comes down. That is your performance review. If in case you are behind schedule, then you might want to optimize the resources. Does this happen in your project? It often happens. You might have 16 hours of work or 10 hours of work, whereas your colleague is sitting idle. He doesn't have work. He is having 2 or 3 hours of work in a day. Now that optimization is required. Ensure that everybody has equal load of work. That is called as a resource optimization, to ensure that my project stays in control, because when I prepare the critical path, I did not look at who is working on what. After looking at who's working on what, I might have imbalances in my team. I might have some work over allocated to somebody and some work under allocated to somebody, and I need to ensure that everybody is balanced. Everybody has same work allocated. I can also do the computer modelings, and computer modeling and simulations are the techniques to find out how soon I would be able to do it, how quickly I would be able to do it. So it's a simulated environment of the real life behavior, the leads and lags, and then at times I might have to compress the schedule, which is crashing, the crashing and the fast tracking, which I spoke about. If in case you have to speed up the project and find out that you have to do the project faster because there will be some penalty clause. If in case you do not do the work before the allocated time period, then you have to speed up. In that situation, you might have to do fast tracking. What is fast tracking? When you're trying to do the activities in parallel. It might or might not involve additional cost, because it might be done by different resources. Whereas crashing will always involve additional cost because you're adding more resources, right? So that's it about schedule management. We are done with the schedule management. almost the same. You will see that almost the same as what we are speaking about tomorrow when we are going to be covering the cost management topic. It's more of a revision which we would be doing over there. Before I let you go, let me share one more video link which I want to watch, which I want you to watch before you come for the session tomorrow. So give me just a moment, and then I will give you the link. Just a moment, please. I've sent you the email also with this video link. Kindly go ahead and watch this video before you come for the session tomorrow. This is on earned value management. This will build some kind of basis of, base of what we're going to discuss tomorrow. So there's one topic, earned value management, which we have not covered today. This is the only difference between time management, or not the difference rather. This is a topic which we cover in cost management. Otherwise, it's absolutely the revision which we do. On value management, using on value management, you would be able to do, again, we would be able to control the schedule, or you would be able to control your, cost as well, both. So as you would have seen, in the majority of the chapter, I said that both your cost and the time is controlled using same tools and techniques. Even earned value management does the same, right? Both these chapters absolutely go hand in hand. So that's it, friends, for today. Let's meet tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the session today. If you have any doubts, any questions, any concerns, please send me an email so that I can pick up, I can either I respond to you on the email, or I will pick up those topics tomorrow and give you a refresher on that, right? So that's it for today. Have a nice day ahead, and see you all tomorrow.